Does anyone have a friend or a family member who are treated differently because of the color of their skin? Have they ever been stereotyped or misjudged because of their physical appearance? Throughout the course of our history, people of color of skin have been trying to spread the word of unity but not diversity. People have been protesting and rioting for several of those reasons. Throughout history and today, the idea of systematic racism being a huge problem in the United States of America. But you may be asking, so why should I care? The fact that people of color are suffering because of their identity, the way they are perceived in society, and the way they are treated poorly compared to other non-colored people. The way that George Floyd was treated by the authorities has caused an uproar in our society today. Today, I will inform you about George Floyd by first discussing the reason why he was arrested and pronounced dead in a crime scene. Second, the after effect of George Floyd's death causing an uproar in the protests and riots. And lastly, a memorial of George Floyd that called a spread of awareness of unlawful action towards our citizens. George Floyd was a black American. He was 46-year-old who was going to the nearest liquor store to buy some cigarettes, who had given the owner of liquor store a $20 Confederate dollar, which a Confederate dollar is basically fake money, which is basically illegal in the United States. And after 17 minutes later, four of the policemen of Minneapolis had to come to the scene quickly enough to talk to George Floyd. After 17 minutes, four policemen of Minneapolis has arrived at the scene to force George to sit down, but Floyd continued to resist the four policemen, who they quickly handcuffed him so they were able to calm him down. In my opinion, I feel like George Floyd in that situation was really stressed out and he didn't know what to do, or he was shocked in that moment. So I guess he kind of sat down, tried to inhale and try to exhale the thoughts that he was going through. Within 5 minutes, the policeman forcibly took George Floyd by handcuffing him and then pinned him to the ground for 8 minutes and 46 seconds to his neck. So basically, this Deputy Chauvin is a former policeman of Minneapolis who used improper techniques to hold down George Floyd to the ground. During those 8 minutes, the crowd has kind of filmed George Floyd in a situation where he couldn't do really anything, and people were just videotaping to actually get the proof of what the actual situation was going on during that time. After George Floyd's death, it has been a huge controversial story that allowed citizens to revolt with anger, sadness, and they wanted a voice to let them know that they needed a change through riots and protests. So now I'm going to talk about the after effect. After a day of George Floyd's death, the acts of people protesting for the help of Black Lives Matter movement and the support of Floyd, throughout the main cities, throughout the entire country of the United States of America, were showing their empathy of his life. But there were other people who were taking advantage of rioting in a disrespectful manner for the life of George Floyd. During those rough times, people were trespassing and others were looting, which is considered of people going to random stores and just violating by stealing, and I guess they resell their products towards like other companies and stuff like that, and which it influenced other cities to do the same thing, which is like people smashing down some statues, which is very illegal in the United States, and that's kind of how they show they're revolutionary. I personally connect to this situation because one of my family members, um, he's like one of my friend as well. Uh, he actually went to the Third Street Promenade to actually loot one of the stores, um, which is considered stealing. Which he actually stole a Nike exclusive shoe, which has probably cost a lot of money today. The riots and protests started to last for several weeks, to the point where military and other police departments had to shut down some important intersections, which it created traffic. People were roaming around the streets. People were slurring. People were just mad because of this unexpected situation by George Floyd. The whole country of the United States of America, rioting and protesting for long periods of time, has finally concluded to a peaceful memorial, but also grievance to show that these unlawful actions of abusive power needed change. After 2 weeks since the passing of George Floyd, the riots and protests started to calm down. The family of Floyd wanted to recognize a memorial speech for the recognition of his life. But most importantly, they wanted to speak upon potential changes in the laws that would prevent any officer to use any abusive power when arresting a person. The message that the entire family of Floyd described the situation as misconduct and violent towards his own son, and the arrest of Floyd was manipulative because of the color of his skin, and that's why these cops acted a certain way to protect themselves from a dangerous man. Throughout the entire speech, the parents of Floyd, Lorenza and George Perry, were very emotional mentally and physically. The way they presented their speech was remorseful and letting other people know that no human should experience this type of harm. After announcing the death of George Floyd, the media were all sad and angry because of this difficult situation for everyone to handle. Words of kindness and to spread some peace and love for this life of George Floyd has also the support of his family. The governor of Minneapolis wanted to change some of the laws due to the impact of Floyd's death. Personally, I go on Twitter and Instagram, and I've seen so many comments about George Floyd of how his passing was really terrible and it should have never happened. Overall, this memorial of George Floyd will definitely make a huge impact on the change of laws that will protect the citizens from all lawful actions. Powerful from authorities shouldn't be abused when exploiting threatful behavioral and actions through an inhuman manner. For that being said, George Floyd's arrest is unexpected death because of their threatful actions, and behavior from those four policemen of Minneapolis has affected many people from across the United States of America. It has caused our country to protest and riot for the demand of change and our unlawful actions for the protection of our citizens. Hopefully, after listening to this speech, you can take away some valuable information that people around you could be at risk because of the color of their skin. What happened to George Floyd is something that's very depressing, and his family and the people that knew all around him were just desperate. The color of our skin should not be stereotyped, judged, or mistreated like what the four policemen did to George Floyd. Remember what Jamar Nelson once said. It makes no difference. The bottom line is, it was long enough to kill him, long enough to execute him. Thank you guys for watching.